guys, it's Sam, and this is my 5-star TBR predictions wrap-up and a new set of predictions. So I've done these videos intermittently for a while. I first saw it on Mercedes' channel of Mercy's Bookish Musings a while ago, so I will link links for other videos and her video down below, because I've been doing this for a couple of years now when she first started doing it. And as the title suggests, this is just me predicting books that I think will be 5 stars on my TBR. Now, in the most recent videos, I've said, like, it's really hard to get a 5-star pick for me, so really this is like 4 and 5-star picks. Like, these are books that I think are going to be really good. Do I necessarily think they're all going to be 5 stars? Because a 5-star book is hard to do for me these days. But I'm very excited because I've been reading books off my TBR much quicker, so these rounds of 5-star TBR predictions are happening faster, which is thrilling. And this was my Patreon video pick for the month. Every month my Patreon supporters get to vote in a poll for a video topic that I will do that month, and this one won. So if you're interested in contributing to my content in that way, they vote on polls for video topics I'll do, books that I'll read, they get entered into a raffle for them to specifically pick a book that I read, and we have a Discord chat and we do buddy reads. There's a lot going on with Patreon these days, so I will link that on the screen if you're interested in getting in on that. So let's get into the wrap up for the last round. My first prediction was The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which was the first book in the Stormlight Archives series. I've actually done reviews for I think all the books that I'm mentioning here, if not most of them, so I will link those on the screen for in-depth thoughts because that's not what this is. But this I end up very much enjoying, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Wasn't quite a 5-star for me because I felt like the first part was like a little bit slow. I liked the whole thing, but it was just like a little bit slower. It took me a little bit longer to connect to it, but I did enjoy this first installment with a solid 4 stars. My next prediction was Realm of Ash by Tasha Suri. This is a book I recently read. This is the second book in the Books of Amba series, which is a companion fantasy series. Empire of Sand was a 5-star read last year, so I definitely thought this was going to be very high. And this book I ended up giving 4.5 out of 5 stars. Wasn't quite the 5 stars that Empire of Sand was. These two books are so intertwined as this companion series, and I just really loved what this book showed because it's taking place about 10 years after the events of the first book. What kept it from being quite a 5 stars was I didn't love the romance in this one quite as much as the first one. It's not the main point of the book, but it definitely is a large subplot, and I just didn't connect and like feel feelings for this couple like I did for the couple in the first book, so yeah. But that did not deter it from being a wonderful book, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next prediction was The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, and this is an adult contemporary romance that I expected to like a little bit more. I ended up giving it 3 to 3.5 stars. This is kind of faded from my memory, even though I only read it a couple of months ago. I enjoyed it, but the romance wasn't as much of a focus as I wanted it to be for an adult contemporary romance. This felt more like, I hate the term chick lit, but it was more focused on like their individual lives and their romance, and when I read a romance, I want the romance to be like possibly the biggest part. So I didn't love this as much as I had hoped to, but it was still an enjoyable read, and I gave it 3.5. Then we have The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. This is a standalone literary fiction story with some magical elements, slightly very small, mixed in. I have a full review for this. I recommend you check that out because this book is kind of hard to explain, but I ended up really enjoying it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The craft of the writing and just how she makes you care about the story that, like, plot-wise I shouldn't care about because it's mostly focused on like a Ponzi scheme, but somehow she makes you care about the characters, even though this is not the kind of book from the synopsis that I would ever want to read, but because she wrote it, it was fantastic. So 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book on the predictions list was The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. This is the 3rd and final book in the Winter Night trilogy. Like I've said, I did a full review for this, like I did for most of these books, but I adored this completely. This was a 5-star read for me, one of my favorites of the year, a finale that I plan to reread. This had everything that I wanted. The arc of the characters was wrapped up beautifully. There was tension, there was angst, there was loss, there was victory, there was hope. There was everything that I wanted and more in this. Like, this is the most perfect finale that I possibly have ever read in my entire life. So this was an actual 5-star pick. So next we have my predictions, and as you guys know, I'm trying to get my TBR down to 0 by the end of June. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm cutting it very, very close, so we will see. So either way, these books I'll be reading within the next 2 months, which is really exciting because I'll know if my predictions are correct very quickly, and you will know as well. So let's get into it. My first prediction is Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the 2nd book in the Foundry Side series. Foundry Side was a 5-star read for me and I loved it, and this is the sequel, so I am very highly looking forward to this, and I've had a few people comment that have read it that this has some tropes that I will probably enjoy, so definitely looking forward to this. Then we have Evidence Gate by James S.A. Corey. This is the 3rd book in the Expanse series, which is an adult science fiction space opera series that I have really enjoyed. It's been a while since I read the 2nd book actually, but but I've loved all the books so far, and they just keep getting better, and there's like political machinations and like a sentient alien space virus and cool spaceships and all of the things that you would want in a fun space opera. So looking forward to continuing with this series. Most of these books are actually series continuations now that I look at this list. My next prediction is Blood Upon the Sand by Bradley Baleo. This is the next book in the Shattered Sand series. The first book was the 12 Kings and Shirakai, and 12 Kings and Shirakai was one of my favorite books that I read last year. I absolutely adored it, and this is a desert fantasy that sort of has like a grimdark feel to it, and it follows a main character who is going after the 12 kings, who are kind of like godlike beings that all have different magical powers, and they killed her mother and she doesn't really know why. So she is this cage fighter that is trying to infiltrate the assassins that protect these kings in order to kill all of them. The mythology and everything in here is wonderful. The setting is wonderful. It is so atmospheric, and I loved the first book, so definitely think that this could be a 5-star pick for sure. Then we're getting into some books that I think could go either way. These are some books that are more polarizing, so we'll see where I fall with these, but if I love them, I think I'm going to love them. We have a finale to a series that I have really enjoyed throughout, so we'll see how I feel about the finale, and that is The Fate of the Tierling by Erica Johansson. This is the last book in an adult fantasy trilogy, but it's a fantasy series that has a bit of a spin to it. This last book is very polarizing for people, and I've put it off for a long time. I didn't own it for quite some time, so now I'm finally getting to it, and we'll see how I end up feeling. I kind of feel like I'm going to love it, but people are all across the board with this one, so we'll see. And my last prediction is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is the first book in an adult fantasy series, and this is based on Japanese history, I believe, but I've heard that it's, again, kind of like a grimdark, very, very brutal, based on some historical events, but not a historical fantasy, really. It's definitely its own fantasy world, but I've heard people either love it or hate it, and that it does rip out your heartstrings completely and is difficult to read at times. So we will see how I feel, but again, I think if I love it, I'm absolutely going to love it, so fingers crossed. So these are the books that I'm thinking will be 4 or 5-star reads for sure. So comment down below, let me know if you have any books on your TBR that you think will be 5-star reads for you. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.